welcome to my channel, Everyday I'm Mothering. So today I'm doing the in-depth look at Level K of the Torchlight Curriculum. Now if you haven't seen my general overall Torchlight video yet, stop watching this one, click on that link down below, and you'll want to go watch that first. It'll tell you all about the program, the philosophy, more of the details around it for you to decide if this is a program that you want to use. Once you've made that decision and you have a learner that you think will be in the Level K, then come back and watch this one. The goal of this video is to take a deep dive look into the level. We're going to talk about the theme, how it's structured, what you need to print, what you're even going to get with it, the activities, some of the standout books for me. I'll go over some of the frequently asked questions that I see about it. And then at the end, we're actually going to take a look at a full week of the curriculum so you can get an idea of exactly how much reading a week would actually look like. Now, I do want to say, hopefully, if you're at this point, you realize that this curriculum does need to be supplemented with the math and English program. I also have reviews on the ones that we use, which is Right Start Math and Logic of English. Again, I'll link all this stuff below. You can also just check out my homeschool playlist. There's tons of information there. When I start showing you my books and the guidebook and all of that, I do just want to say that I did Level K 2 years ago. It was when it was first released. So I know she's made some updates since then. The majority of those are going to be, if a book went out of print or it's hard to find or something like that, she'll make an adjustment, or there might be a few additional materials, or the guidebook may look just a little bit different with a layout or something along those lines. There's not any big material differences. So if you see something here and you're thinking, I don't have that book or it doesn't look familiar, that's probably why. I have the option to use the update, but since I already have all the materials and I've done it once and it worked, I'm just sticking with that, for Adeline as well, just to clear up any confusion with that part. The theme of Level K is worldly wisdom. And what that really means is that the program looks at different countries around the world. It's not just looking at the country from a geographical standpoint, but you're actually learning about culture there, the animals, and then usually the literature that goes along with that week will be something either around that country, written by someone from that country, reflective of that culture. So your learner's really getting a chance to, travel the globe in a sense and learn about all these different places, but using really interactive and engaging books and activities to go with that. And another key point in this curriculum is emphasis on character development. So there are books that you'll read throughout the year that will illustrate some type of ethical or moral lesson. And even a lot of the literature books will have some element of that. So it's really about discussing with your children as you read all of these books, no matter what they are. But specifically in that aspect, they're so young at this point and really trying to understand and grasp their own emotions. So some of these stories really help with that as well. So the first thing when you buy the program is you're going to need to get the PDF. And again, I'm not going to go into all the details of what you get when you purchase, that's in that general video. But once you've bought the program, you've downloaded your PDFs, you're ready to print if you choose so. And I have a separate video all about my printing selections and the company I use, and I'll link that down below in case you want to check out what that looks like. I like to print my guidebook so that I have it in hand and I can flip through it throughout the year. There's also a student book available that you can print, but I know a lot of people choose to actually print that individually and just hole punch it and put it into a binder. That way you have a little bit more flexibility since it is more of an interactive piece. We haven't personally used that. It wasn't available at the very beginning, so it's just not been something I've decided to include, but it's an option. So the guidebook itself will give you a layout of what to expect from Torchlight, how the program works, and it will actually talk you through, what a typical day could look like for you, how you could start out the program. It gives you some tips and just some general guidelines to how you could structure this program if you choose to do so. Also in your guidebook, you're going to find your book list. So again, you don't necessarily have to buy all these books. I talked about that in the general video as well. If you do decide to purchase some, I'll put a code down below so you can get $10 off your first book outlet order. But really, if you have to make some decisions, the spines are going to be the books that you're going to want to purchase. And a spine in this curriculum just means a book that you will use over and over throughout the year. So here's a look at the spines that you'll use throughout the year. So these will be ones that you'll come back to week after week. So when you're looking at those in the book list, you'll see that they are in bold and they have a star next to them. So that's how you can easily determine which book is a spine. And then your guidebook will list out all the other books that you'll need to purchase. It will also give you ideas on any alternatives you may decide to use, supplements, or books that would be good audio choices if that's something that would interest your learner. One thing I do really appreciate about the Torchlight curriculum is provide plenty of alternatives. So you may need an alternative just because you can't find one of the books easily, or you may have an issue or concern with one of the readings. And she does a really good job of noting any of that up front, so it's something that you can decide if you want to use that book or not. And if you don't, then there are alternatives listed. So an example of that is the Year Full of Stories book. I have heard some people express concerns that some of the stories are a little dark and that their learners may be a little bit too sensitive for that. That's a book that they may choose to use an alternative for. But I will just go ahead and say here that we loved that book. You don't actually read every single story in it, so she doesn't include any that are what I would find really dark or disturbing. And if there is a quick mention of something, she'll make sure to note that with you. So for us, it was fine and we enjoyed it. But again, I like that she tells you that. And there are people that do choose to use the alternatives. And while we're talking about alternatives, so I did mention that I used the first edition and not much had changed, other than a few small things. Well, one of the big things that I know did change was which character development spine book that she recommended. When I first got the program, it was this Building Character with True Stories book. This has been the only book out of the multiple levels of Torchlight we've done that has been just a complete dud for us. And it's not that it's a bad book, it was just way too advanced for a 5-year-old, or I would say probably even an 8 or 9-year-old. It just was not engaging. So when we did the program, I actually did just scratch that, and I supplemented with another book that a lot of people had recommended. It was this Molly and Keela book. Now this is what is actually in the curriculum, and we just adored this book. It is so much better, and I am glad that she made that change. So this is the book that you will end up buying. And so, like I said, that was our only miss in the program. So you don't have to worry about that getting it next. So after the list of books, you'll also find supplemental recommendations for games, apps, TV shows, different kinds of resources to go along with the curriculum. And what's also neat is when you purchase the curriculum, you will get access to a members only area on the website. And there are people that will submit to Torchlight, things they put together, and she'll include them there for you. So for example, for level K, you'll find a list out there that has different Netflix shows with the exact episodes that correspond with different weeks in the curriculum. So that's really neat. And there are also members who have put together a playlist on YouTube. So you can go out there and find different videos that will also match the week. So there are a lot of different resources, whether you want to use books, audio, visual, whatever it is, you're going to find some stuff to really help beef up each of these weeks. And you can go in as much depth as your learner wants to about that subject. So then your next pages are going to be your question reference guides. And what this program is starting to instill in learners from the beginning is the ability to, question and think through what they're reading. It's not just about being read to or even just answering a list of questions back, checking the box that you understood what you read. It's really about asking a question and having a dialogue together to understand, what is it we read? Why did the character do this? Would you have acted this way? Why do you think this happened? And it helps them start to really think through, what they're reading and how to interpret it. And I really like that about this program. You're building that love for learning by, getting them questioning things and having them engaged with you. So these guides are just that. They're guides. They're not something that's going to be a script for you just to sit down and read. But it gives you, an idea, especially starting out. I know it can be a little nerve-wracking to start homeschool and not be sure what you're supposed to do and if you're going to do it wrong. So it's nice to have these guys kind of get you on that path. But then once you get comfortable, it starts just to come naturally and you find that you're not even really looking at these anymore. But what I did first starting out was just to print off those 2 pieces of paper, and I just laminated them. And it was something that I stuck in my planner and I could just easily grab it so I wasn't having to flip back to that page. And it just helped me have some confidence at the beginning that I was doing it correctly and could easily glance down and see what I was supposed to talk to them about. And along the same lines are the Geo Inquiry Lessons. So I also printed that out so I would have a quick and easy reference guide and then laminated it as well. Basically what this Geo Inquiry lesson is just, again, it's a conversation where a child is looking at a globe. So it is very important for this curriculum to purchase a globe. The whole theme is traveling around the world, looking at different countries. So you'll want your child to be able to, physically have the globe and be able to look at where everything is in relation to themselves. And that's one of the key points, is that they're learning to identify, themselves, awareness of where they are, and then starting to understand, spatially, where other countries are in relation to them, and the globe really helps them do that. So the way the lessons are structured is that it builds on each week. So at the beginning, they're really just focused on themselves. Where's their home on the globe? And for us, I ended up putting like a little post-it tab and I stuck it on the globe so she could easily identify, here's where we are. Then every week you start to ask a few more questions. You're always repeating the same questions, so they will always be talking about, like north and south, or, where the bodies of water are located next to these countries. But gradually, they start gaining an understanding. And so you go deeper and deeper with the inquiry lessons. And this is usually how we would start out our week. We get down the globe, we talk about what country we were going to be studying that week, we'd find it, we'd do the lesson, and that would help us really just kind of zero in on what it was we were going to be talking about this week. She really enjoyed finding the places on the map and to spinning around, and at the end of the year going back and looking at all the different places that we had studied. My tip is just to go ahead and print out these reference guides. You'll use them a lot, especially in the beginning. So then you really get into the meat of the guidebook. And that's where it's telling you what you're going to do every week. So you can see you'll get a week overview. Well, it will tell you exactly what you're going to be reading Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And it will go by your categories. So you have your literature or poetry, then your reading and writing, art and music, social studies and culture. It has math in here, but math is not included with the curriculum. So I've said this before, I don't know why it's included in here. It doesn't really need to be. It's always blank. Then you have your science and then the building character. So if you're doing your own planner, which I highly recommend, and I have a video on how I set mine up looking specifically at Torchlight and showing you our kindergarten 1. So I recommend you check that out. But if you're doing that, this is the kind of information that you'll want to include in your planner. It's a high overview. It's really just telling you, which books and the pages. But then you'll jump into more detail when you look at each of the days. Now also here, it will give you any supplies you need. That's also important to note before the week, so you can make sure that you have those. If you don't have your supplies beforehand, you are so much more likely to skip these activities and not do them. I've been guilty of that. So as best as you can, try to get all your supplies, at the beginning of the year, the ones that you can. And my tip for you is to actually have a basket, and at the beginning of the week, put all your supplies that you're going to need in that basket so you are ready to go with any type of experiments, arts and crafts, any of that. The quicker you can grab something and good to go, the more likely you are to stick with it and do it. Then you jump into your daily breakdown. So here you can see for week 1, day 1, what that would look like. So it'll give you your book, what pages you're going to read, and then usually it'll give you either an outline of the activity or something to note, some discussion points, a little bit more detail, just to help you structure your day and move along. Again, this is not a script like some other curriculums, so you don't just sit down and just read this. This is something you'll look over like in the morning or right before you start your readings, and then you can just go through them. So like I said at the beginning of this video, I am going to come back and walk you completely through a full week. We'll look at week 21 Antarctica and all of the books and all the readings for that. That'll be a little bit later in this video. So as you saw in that weekly outline, the basic structure of the curriculum is very similar week to week. You'll have your country that you're going to study that week, the animal that lives there, and then you'll have your science reading, and then usually either art or music, and then your character development. So some people have had some really neat ideas about activities you could do every week, help you kind of track and reflect the countries. I've seen where people have printed out like flags that they will color in and then write facts about the country. I've also seen some super cute creative things with like passport booklets or even like airline tickets where they can illustrate them and again write facts, and it's just a neat thing to kind of track your journey throughout the year. There's a lot of room for some real creativity and ways to have fun with us. Now I want to talk a little bit more about the science element of Level K. The series that Alina loved, and also Adeline, who was only 3 at the time, was this Zoe and Sassafras series. It is absolutely one of the cutest series that I have found. First, I love the main character, and the fact that it presents science in this like fun, magical way. Really nice introduction to the scientific method and getting them used to thinking things through with, the hypothesis and setting up your experiment and getting your results. And they're just such cute books. We've actually continued the series and gotten all the new ones that have come out since we completed Level K because we still just enjoy them so much. And I will say that if you go online to like the Zoe and Sassafras site, they have activities to go along with each of the books. And we really enjoyed doing those. We've done like mold experiments to go along with one of them. There's just a lot of really fun and neat things that they can do. But even as part of Torchlight, sometimes they'll have activities to go along with them. Like my girls loved making their magical animals and using like the glow in the dark paint. And again, my 3-year-old also participated in that. So we've just had such fun with this series. But then the other part of science is the Be Naturally Curious. And that's more of like your traditional science. So you'll learn about a unit and then you'll have some type of activity to go with it. But even with these, the units are told in such cute stories that my girls really enjoyed it. They still talk about the characters from some of these stories, and they loved like the butterfly and moth one, and it really sticks with them. Learned a lot. And they really enjoy the activities. We made a mobile with that one where you have like your butterflies and moths for day and night, and they just had so much fun. So I've been really happy with the Be Naturally Curious. Now, it's not a really in-depth science program, and I'll talk about add-ons a little bit later in this video, but it's definitely a nice introduction, you know, to science elements. So the art focus in the book is kind of twofold. The primary book for this uses a template where they will actually, you know, trace out the shapes, cut them, and put them together to form, typically it's like an animal. So it's really good for developing that fine motor skill. And my 3-year-old would also do this, except, you know, I would help her cutting it, but that was really neat. So then you have 2 other book series, and the one is Katie, and she will actually travel into these paintings. So through these really cute stories, you get to learn about different artists, different styles of painting. And then typically at the end of the book, there's some type of suggested activity. So we would typically do those. And my girls had so much fun, especially when they would get to use watercolor paint and make some of these fun designs. So I really enjoyed this series. And the other series looks at this panda. And there's a couple of them. I'm not sure what the exact series is called, but like this one is Zen Ties. There's always some kind of cute story, moral issue as well that they're learning about. We've done some watercolor based on these, or like tried to write haikus because it also incorporates that. So both of these have been really neat things to get you doing art. I will say for us, I felt like we needed to add a little bit more in. So I ended up getting this lab book, and it has a different activity to do each week. And this one might now actually be included in their pre-K level. I'm not sure on that, but I feel like I saw that it is in there. So I'm gonna say good call on her for including that, because we really liked it when I found it to add to our level K. But I really like how it uses different mediums, and it just gets them up and being creative. My kids love arts and crafts, and if I'm being honest, that can be one of my weaknesses as far as getting the materials out, sitting down with them, and not like being so anxious about the mess and all of that. So something that I'm working on, and it does help me to have, you know, something like this that's really kind of structured and I can plan for it to make sure that I am giving them, you know, access to all the materials and really letting them be creative. Also did want to mention a book that we purchased, and it is this Map of the Worlds book. I absolutely love this book, and I added it into the curriculum, and we would do it at the beginning when we were doing our Geo lesson, and it's just so cute. It has a lot of facts about the country, and if your learner is like Elena, she really likes to go in depth about a topic, so she wants to research, she wants all the facts, so this was a really neat extra book to have, and it's just a beautiful book. And also about the spines, I do know that a lot of people have trouble purchasing the Cultured Chef. Make sure you purchase this one directly from the author. You'll be able to find that easily online, but that's where you'll want to go to buy that one. And that book is so neat. So, you know, not only are you studying and you're learning these facts, the animals and the culture, but then you actually get to cook and eat the food. And that was such a neat experience. And my girls both looked forward to it. Like all week, they'd be asking me, what are we cooking this week? What's the menu? What's the recipe? And for a week, if there wasn't something to cook in there, we would try to go to that restaurant or, you know, get takeout or find some recipe at home and make something. So we had a lot of fun doing this every week. Now, we definitely had some fails on it. There were a couple things they did not enjoy. I think it might have been the Hawaii week one that they did not like, and my mom was actually down visiting that week, so they made her taste one of them too. I don't remember what was in it, but we had to send Craig to some special store to get this ingredient. But anyway, it was one of those things that, I mean, they still talk about because they remember it, and it was just such a fun, neat thing. And you know, of course, with cooking, you're learning about science and math at the same time. So it's a really fun thing to include in the curriculum. So we've talked about the spines, but I also really want to showcase some of the other books in the curriculum since, you know, obviously that is the strongest draw to the program. It was so important for me when I was looking for a program to find one that was really literature based. I love to read, my girls love to read, and I just found, especially in kindergarten, you know, the whole point of learning, and especially with homeschool, is that you're teaching through play, through interaction. It's, you know, it's not about just reading a bunch of facts or doing a workbook or watching a video. I mean, you really want them to be engaged and enjoying it, so they grow that love from learning at the beginning. So not only did I want it to be literature based where we were reading, I wanted it to be excellent books. You know, books that would excite her, make her really become an avid reader, and expose her to different things. But when I saw the book list from Torchlight, I was just blown away. And I continue to be through all the levels. But I will have to say that Level K, in my opinion, had one of the best book lists through the levels. It covers such a wide range of countries, religions, different issues, differences, diversity, and we just absolutely loved it. I want to share just a couple of the ones that stood out from us, you know, from that aspect. You can see here, just from looking at the cover of a few of these books that I picked, how diverse they are. All the main characters look different, which I think is so important, that they're not seeing the same type of character in all the stories, which can often be the case in some of the mainstream literature that you see in curriculums. So some of the ones that they still talk about today, this Biblioburo from Colombia, where he created a library and would travel with donkeys to different towns. They still talk about that one. But I would say probably their absolute top one they talk about the most is One Green Apple. And it's about a little girl who's actually a Muslim immigrant, and she comes to America and she can't speak English. And they're at this apple farm, and it's all about including someone and how they might feel if they don't speak your language or they feel different. But it's in a way they can really understand when they're talking about, you know, one green apple versus other people picking the red apple. Even to this day, if we talk about how someone may be from another country or doesn't understand English, they will automatically say, oh, like one green apple, this is probably how they feel and this is what we should do, how they're feeling, just like one green apple. So it is a great starting place for a dialogue there. You can see you're talking about Native Americans and dealing with that colonialism viewpoint. Then I really like the A Story, where it talks about African folklore, but it's really authentic in how it's presented. And it led to a path of us really getting into the art and the stories and the method of storytelling. My girls really enjoyed it. They love the story about the lost cat. And this is something I probably would have never dreamed of discussing in a kindergarten curriculum, about a refugee and this family fleeing from Iraq. Again, it's told in a really appropriate manner. It starts so young and really builds empathy and this understanding. And I also love that it introduces different styles of families. You have one where it talks about blended families with the 7 grandparents. And then one of our absolute favorites was And Tango Makes 3. It's just such a wonderful, cute story about just the beauty of love, no matter what that looks like. So I wanted to make sure that I did focus on some of these standout books, and that doesn't mean that the others aren't great as well, because they are. I'd include them all right now if I could. But I really just want to make sure that I give this the moment it deserves and showcase how inclusive this program is and the wide range of cultures and topics that it does cover. We've also found so many series books that we loved, and many of them we've continued past what's just in this curriculum, and we're still reading them. They're absolutely adorable series. I'll say probably my girl's favorite was the Mercy Watson, and my 3-year-old absolutely loved this one as well. They talked about this great deal of buttered toast forever. Like even now when we have breakfast, they'll talk about needing a great deal of butter like Mercy Watson. So they loved it. It was so cute. It had pictures, and it was a nice introduction into reading more of chapter book style books. Then the Greetings from Somewhere was another really cute series about some siblings that are homeschooled and they travel to different countries and solving mysteries. It's really cute how it would tie into the country that we were studying about at the time. We've adored the Missy Pickle Wiggle series. We've read more of those as well. But I would say if I had to identify my daughter's favorite book out of this level, it would be Tum Tum and Nutmeg. And I would not have guessed that, like initially looking at these books and this curriculum. But I kid you not that she has read that thing. I mean, I don't even know at this point how many times. And the book we bought actually has, I think, 3 stories in it, not just the one that you read in the curriculum. So we've read them all. She loved it, and I had accidentally, or for some reason, I don't know how, purchased 2 of them. There's so many books here, I got off track and bought it twice. So I just gave her 1, because typically I try to keep all of these books put up separately. Since I'm going to be using them for multiple kids, I want them to stay intact. But anyway, so she got the extra one. The cover has been worn off now. She has laid in bed with it. She takes it everywhere with her. She has well loved that book. So I mean, it just goes to show that this curriculum has so many neat books that you never know which one is going to be the one that just really stands out for your child. If I had to pick my least favorite book in the series, it would probably be The Wishing Chair. I just did not care for that book, but my daughter loved it. But that's probably the only book that I struggled to get through. She still liked it, so I guess that's what's most important. So now I want to try to answer or discuss some of the concerns that I have seen most frequently from people who are considering their curriculum or just purchased it. Now, if I don't answer a question that you have, leave it down below, and I'll try my best to answer all the questions and respond to all the comments. But there's also a great resource if you are on Facebook for the Torchlight Curriculum discussion page. And a lot of parents will either give ideas, suggestions, or help answer questions for all the different levels. So I highly suggest that you join that if you're not already, and it's a great resource as well. So probably the top question, and not necessarily just for level K, actually for all the levels, is trying to determine if this is appropriate for a certain aged child. And I'm gonna say that, it really just depends on the child. But what is nice about Torchlight is it has a lot of flexibility. So even though it's called level K, 1, 2, 3, whatnot, that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be kindergarten, first grade, second grade. You can really look at the program, determine, where you think your child is as far as, reading ability or interest, and decide what's gonna work for you. I know there are people who do level K for children who might traditionally be in first, second, or third grade. And it might be because they have multiple age children, so they're wanting something to combine for them, and that's fine. It works out well because you can always add more. Like even when we did this for Elena, she was so interested in these that we would go to the library every week and we would find more books on the country and whatever animal it was that we were studying that week. So we would typically bring home at least 10 more books in addition to these so that she could really get more information on it. And we would watch videos on them. We would really explore further because that's how Elena is and she enjoyed it. I was able to tailor it for her. But on the flip side, you can also stretch out a week to 2 weeks. I know some people do that because they feel like it's a little too much for them. I know people who have used level K and extended it over a 2-year period. So there's really no set rules. I do believe that she is putting out, if she hasn't yet, it's coming out to the website, like a level placement test or guide, and it may already be there on the Torchlight site. So you can look at that too. But definitely don't get hung up on, the level K and feeling like it's going to be too young or too hard. I do want to clarify because I have heard the comment lately that level K is not intended for a 5-year-old or it's too difficult for a 5-year-old. And they're trying to persuade people not to use level K for 5, to use level pre-K. You can certainly do that. But I do want to say that, level K was not too advanced in our situation. Elena was 5 when we started it. And like I've said, my 3-year-old also joined in for a lot of the picture books and the activities. She obviously didn't, take it in the same level. It even held her attention. He added more to it and really beefed it up from just like an educational fact standpoint because Elena wanted to. So I definitely do think that this is appropriate for a 5-year-old, but it can be modified up or down, depending on your situation and your learner. Another common question is how long, this program takes and how your day is structured. And again, we're gonna look at a full week so you can get an idea. But just from our perspective, at first I started out following exactly what she said to do for each day of the week. But then we have found that we typically will be able to do all of the reading on Monday morning. And I would say that it probably never even took us a full hour to do all the readings for the week. But again, that's going to depend on your learner. My girls will sit there and let me read for them for hours. They are just content as can be with that. You're able to read it all in one sitting. Now, sometimes with the chapter books, I still would try to space those out with the chapters, just kind of get her used to doing that. But, she would rather just read them all at once, and that's fine. You can do that too. So, whatever works for you. But the reading part for us, really didn't take that long. And then, like I said, throughout the rest of the week, we would read the books that we got from the library. And then as far as the arts and crafts and any science, those typically go pretty quickly as well. But of course you can let them, stay and keep playing as long as they want, but maybe 30 minutes. And then for the music, my kids absolutely loved the classical kids series that's used in the curriculum, but we would typically play that during lunch for that week. And sometimes we would get through it, in the first 2 days, and I would just replay it the rest of the week. But they really enjoyed it. And the question that's probably the most debated in a sense is the way the curriculum is actually laid out and structured. When you start looking at it, you'll notice that the topics for the week, the different countries, do not stay grouped by continent. So, initially it might make sense that you would start all your countries in Europe at one time, and then Asia and Africa. But actually, the way the program is laid out, you will jump from, country to country in different continents throughout the year. And in some, you'll actually come back to them. This approach has caused, a lot of discussion and some confusion from people about why it's laid out that way, and that it doesn't necessarily make sense. The creator of Torchlight has actually answered this several times in the Facebook group. But her reasoning is that, this is based on cognitive research that shows spaced retrieval is actually more effective at this age. And then it also sets the stage for later levels where they're studying history in a chronological order. So for example, in level 1, we would jump from continent to continent and the ancient history timeline. But we were already used to doing that because that's how we studied in level K. Now, I will say for us, this was never an issue. I actually found that it kept it fresh and interesting so that you weren't studying, the same continent for so many weeks that you're kind of going over the same facts. It was really nice for us to go, from a country in this continent over here and then come back to this continent, and then we would kind of refresh the facts or learn some more. And it really did help her with retrieving that information versus if we didn't talk about South America, again for 4 months, she wasn't probably going to remember what we had initially talked about. So for us, I found it very effective. I know there's been some concerns about at, the age of 5, can children really understand where places are in the world in relation to them, especially if you are jumping around like that. But that's one of the really nice things about that Geo Inquiry lesson, and how they're always coming back to the globe and how you've marked where they are on the globe. So they're always turning it and finding where they are. And actually, when we would do it, a lot of the times Elena would still find the countries we had done, previously. She would say, oh, I remember we did this one, and then it's over here. So it was just really nice how she got an overall look at the world, but we were constantly talking about it and going back over it. So for us, I found it very effective. But with that said, if it doesn't make sense to you or your learner is struggling to do it, you can always change the weeks. They are not set in stone. And I know a lot of people do that. You can certainly take this and do it by continent if it's going to work best for you. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've simply just shared what the creator has said as her reasoning and our experience, but you can absolutely do whatever works for you, and it's going to be just fine as well. I did talk about this one a little bit earlier when people ask about adding on something to the curriculum, and typically that's from a science perspective. And the concern there is that the science isn't strong enough in this curriculum, and you need to add in some other more formal type of science. And I can certainly understand that, especially from our family. Elena loves science, space, engineering. That is her area. So if we were going to strengthen something, science is it. But even with that, I would really caution you about adding on too much to the program, especially if you are doing this with a 5-year-old. The goal with kindergarten is really learning through, play and interaction. The school day really shouldn't take that long, hour-wise, of when you're sitting down studying something. Now, that does not mean if your child is interested in it, you shouldn't do it by any means. But my suggestion would be just go with this program as is, add in your math, add in your English, and give it, a month and see what your schedule's looking like. Is it overwhelming? Can you add in more? How's your child doing? But so often with homeschool parents, we see all these curriculums and we get so excited. We want to include them all because they all look so good. And then you get overwhelmed. You have so much stuff, or you've bought so much curriculum, and you're just almost setting yourself up to fail because you can only do so much, especially with multiple children in your day, trying to get it all done. You don't want to overwhelm them or overload them, especially in the beginning. Go easy on yourself, see how it goes. You can always add more. It's my recommendation from the beginning. Now, if you do find you want to add in some more science, instead of doing an actual official curriculum, what we do is just buy science kits, some books with science experiments, and we would just work through these experiments, as we had time, as we were interested in them. But we typically got to where we were doing about one a week. I'll add a caveat here that when Elena did level K, she was also enrolled in a science lab tutorial. So she was getting a weekly hour-long class where they were doing hands-on science lab work. Now, if we hadn't done that, then I would have probably, done even more of those science experiments at home. And then, for this year, since we're unfortunately not able to do any of those enrichment tutorials because this year looks different for everyone, even traditionally people who have homeschooled in the past. Adeline is coming up. We're getting ready to do level K all over again with her, but I am going to make sure that I'm more disciplined in adding in weekly, science lab hands-on activities for her this year. I want to walk you through an entire week of Torchlight So you can see exactly how much reading this would be and kind of get your head around it so you're not wondering, is this going to be too much? Is it going to be overwhelming? It won't be, but I just want to show you so you can really visually see what these pages would look like. We're going to do week 21. You can see that we are studying Antarctica this week. So you have your list of what you'd be reading Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So this is the stack of books for the week. You can see them here. Now, some of these are spines, so you're not actually reading the whole book this week. So it's not even as overwhelming as this might seem, but really, this is not that much. So the first thing for Monday is the Sophie Scott Goes South. And this tells you what pages you'll be reading. So you're not reading the whole book in one day. You're just reading pages 1 through 8. So here you can see what that would look like for Monday. And it says that it goes through the end after day 5. That's it. That's all the reading that you're doing from this book for Monday if you stick with the way that it's outlined. So then you have your art activity. And this week it's making the penguin because you're doing Antarctica. So here you will see your instructions. It'll tell you which shapes they're going to trace from the template, and you'll just need to get construction paper in those colors. And what I found actually helped us with this book is to just keep a pile of scraps, because usually you won't even use very much from each color. So I would just actually keep these in the book, and when we went to get it, we usually had them there. And then a tip for doing the eyes with this is just to use a hole punch, because it is really hard to trace and cut that little tiny circle. A hole punch is perfect, so that's what you'll want to do for that. They just cut it and then glue and put it together, and you can see here what Elena and Adeline's look like. And again, obviously Adeline was 3, so I helped her. And then you have your spine, the Atlas of Animal Adventures. And so you're going to be reading page 80 to 81 this week. And this goes right along with the artwork, penguins. So you're studying the emperor penguins. And you can see with this one, you'll have a little bit of information at the top, and then there's lots of pictures. And some of them are really kind of cute and silly. So my girls loved finding them. They would point them out, and we would read each of the little things about them. And they really enjoyed this book, and it goes really quickly. But like I said, we would get so many more books, like for this week in particular, about penguins. We would watch all these videos about penguins. So you can really go, in as much information as you want with each of these animals. And then in this one, remember, this is the first edition, so it still had that other building characters book. But I traded that out anyway for Molly and Keela, which is what you would have now. And when I did it, I would just read one of the stories each week. So you can see here just an example of how long that story would be. And then there'd be some questions at the end to talk through. And that's all we would do for this. We didn't do any type of activity. We just read it and answered the questions. And that's it for how much you're actually reading on Monday. On Tuesday, you're picking back up with the Sophie Scott Goes South. And you're reading pages 9 through 14. So here you can get an idea, again, of what that would look like. And you can see it's mostly pictures on the one page. And that's it. Then this week you're reading The Tango Makes 3. And this is one of the books that I talked about earlier that we just absolutely loved. And it's the cutest little book. We're reading the whole book this week. So I'll give you an idea of what that actually looks like. You can see there's not very much print on any of the pages. I'm just going to flip through a little quickly. I don't want to show the whole book and get in trouble here, but you can see that that's how long it is. So it's really not very much reading at all, and it's such a cute story that this type of reading goes by really quickly. Then for the science on Tuesday, you're picking back up with Zoe and Sassafras, book 4. So oftentimes with the Zoe and Sassafras books, they will break them apart across 2 weeks because they're a little bit long and they could be dense, especially if you're just getting used to reading chapter books. So in this case, we're reading chapter 13 and 14 of book 4. Typical of the chapter, you'll have some pictures in there, and the chapters go fairly quickly. And that's it. It's the end of that book, actually. More often than not, we would end up reading this whole thing at one time. And again, that's it for Tuesday. So for Wednesday, you can see it's a pretty light day, and you're just reading the one book because I didn't use this activity. Now, on these light days, that could be when you want to add in something extra of your own, and that would be perfect because you have more time to do that. So we're reading Sophie Scott Goes South again, pages 15 to 24. So you can see again what that would look like. Then we go to Thursday, which is again just Sophie Scott Goes South. Then you're finishing the book up on Thursday. So then on Friday, you're reading one of the other spines, which is Around the World on 80 Legs. And this is 14 through 20. These are just cute little poems, and they go really quickly. This is another one I know people are having trouble getting a hold of. So I don't know if it's still included. I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't change this one. It's still included. You can get a hold of it. I definitely do recommend it. It's a really cute, neat book for poetry that goes along with the animals. Then the final reading for this week is back to your animal atlas. That's where you're looking at seals. What's also nice is you can see here in the curriculum that if there are links to, audiobooks or YouTube videos, that she will include those. So here's just another option if you'd rather listen to the book, that you can do that too. You can see there's some additional extension and activity options available. That's it, that's a full week. And so you can see it's completely doable. So the way we typically structure our week is we try to do all of our readings on one morning and then do like our activities and experiments throughout the rest of the week. Especially now this year that I'm going to be doing multiple levels, and I do still have a 2-year-old here that can make everything a little unpredictable. So I like trying to get as much as we can get done at the beginning, and I'll alternate days for the levels and then kind of have that breathing room. And I always schedule Fridays off as any kind of catch up from the week. I'm also going to be doing a video specifically about my schedule, sitting down with you as I'm planning out how I'm envisioning this year going. If you haven't yet, make sure to just go ahead, hit that subscribe button. That way you'll be notified when that video comes out. If you have any other questions about Torchlight Level K, leave them down below. Please give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful, and make sure to check out my other homeschool playlist for all my other reviews and a lot of good tips. Bye everyone!